Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 446 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our fifth book just came out. It's called Perseverance and How to Be a Great Fraternity or Sorority Alumnus. So go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, we've had tremendous success in Wilson County, Tennessee, in bringing first-time drug offenders to our diversion center instead of going to jail. There they get access to the treatment that they need, and if they do everything that we ask for 6 months, then they graduate from the program, their criminal records are completely expunged, and then we just get them back to work. We've had a 75% success rate with our diversion center, and I hope more diversion centers are going to pop up all over the country as a result of the work that we've done in Tennessee. Our next guest also believes in interrupting the school to prison pipeline, and he's actually breaking that cycle. Aaron Patterson has overcome years of roadblocks and failures, and so he leads vulnerably with his scars first. He's been a youth mentor for over 8 years and comes from the music industry, so he has a knack for storytelling and connecting with students past the surface. His presentations challenge students to be more because they're made for more, leaving them inspired and ready to break free from any negative cycle stopping them from having a brighter future. We're living in a day and an age where young people are struggling mentally and suffering in silence. People are feeling hopeless and discouraged every day they wake up. That's why Aaron strives to empower each student to harness the power of their pain, to transform it into purpose, and thereby create a brighter and better future for themselves and also for the community. Welcome to the show, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Hey,
I
man, it is
appreciate it.
great to have you on the show. I've been pumped up for this interview all week long, so I can't wait to jump into this because I know you are just stellar when it comes to a speaker and connecting with students. I want to go back to middle school. It's not usually the place that I start. I usually start later in life, but you were smart, you loved learning, and you realized that getting good grades was frowned upon. So
Yeah.
you actually began dimming your light to fit in with the crowd that you were hanging out with. How do we prevent that from happening with today's students?
So yeah, for me, it's like I love reading. I love learning. I would grab books from the library. Like I was interested in that stuff. My mom told me, but yeah, I got bullied. They used to call me nerd, dweeb. I had bigger glasses back then, these Urkel glasses. So I was like, man, being cool isn't smart. Let me just act dumb and not do my schoolwork because then I could fit in more. So I feel like with this generation of kids, especially with the internet, um, it's letting them know it's okay to be different. Like if I had known that it was okay to be different, it was okay to be smart, I wouldn't have dimmed my light. But because they need to see something else, so let them know it's okay to be smart, it's okay to be different. You could be an athlete and intelligent. Like you could like chess and you could like astrology and learning and reading, but also be a cool kid. So let them know that even if they're not considered the cool kid, that they're set apart and it's okay. It's okay if you're not like the crowd, but let them know they can create their own path and they can create their own future and they don't have to fit in. Like it's okay to not fit in necessarily. If I had known that, I would have saved myself from so much trouble, honestly.
See, this is why role models are so important. People,
Yeah,
young people, they need older people and their wisdom to basically say, okay, it's cool if you want to study and get good grades, but you can also be an athlete or you can do whatever it is that you want. But being unique is a great thing, not something we should be shying away from.
for sure.
In high school, you kind of turn that around in terms of your popularity because now you're a star on the football team. Now you're popular, but you started abusing drugs and alcohol. Now you're finding yourself getting into more and more risky behavior. You're even selling drugs in order to make money. Now you're lashing out at your parents. You're getting brought home by the police, and you're even getting into street fights because you're so filled up with this anger that's consuming you. So ultimately, what made you decide to get sober and to change all of that?
So it's a process. So for me, like I tried everything. like the different type of drugs, the partying, that lifestyles, making rap music and stuff like that. And I was still empty. And I was like, man, like all this stuff that the cool kids are doing, I've tried it, I've done it, I've experienced it, and I still don't feel this sense of happiness. So for me, getting sober was kind of being like, enough is enough. Like I know better. I know better, so it's time for me to do better. And I wish I could say it was just an overnight thing, but it wasn't. It was like a slow process, but it really started with me being like, I know that I'm made for more. Like I can feel it in my bones that I'm meant to do something big and great. And my current decisions isn't getting me closer to that. And I can't blame anybody else for decisions I've made. So it's time for me to just take accountability on the actions that I've done that have led me down this path. And I said, you know what? The drugs isn't helping me get there. So that's the first thing I could start with is my own behavior and my own vices. And when I changed that, then the whole world opened up for me. When I stopped using and I started just taking accountability for my actions, honestly, then I just noticed that I started attracting positive things. When I stopped
Mhm.
doing negative things, my life became positive. And it was really just sticking to that. And when I wanted to go back into my old habits, remembering where those habits led me. It was nothing good came from that. So yeah, now I've been 8 years sober and I haven't touched a drug and I've just been on the straight and narrow, honestly.
Good for you, man. I'm proud of you. 8 years sober, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, congratulations on that. I think that's awesome. And good for you for recognizing that you're taking accountability for what you put into your body and saying, you know what, that didn't lead me down the right path. I saw nothing good come out of any of that.
Yeah.
And so good for you for recognizing and making that change. I think that's really important for the students who are listening to actually do that assessment and say, am I actually heading down the right path with the decisions that I'm making? Yes or no? If the answer is no, you got to change something. I mean, if you want different results, you got to change the way you're approaching things. Otherwise, you're going to get the same results as you got before.
Exactly.
Mm, mm. So now
Exactly.
you're a motivational speaker, you're a rapper, you're an entrepreneur, you're a certified life coach, and most importantly, you're a father and a husband. And I think that's really critical. So, how do you transform all of this pain that you experience early on in your life and now make it your life's purpose?
So for me, it was like in retrospect, I'm like, wow, this whole process and journey I've been on was bringing me to this point right now because now I work with a lot of at-risk students, younger. I work with college students. I work with a bunch of different type of students. I've got a bachelor's degree. So when I got my head together, I went to college, ended up getting a bachelor's degree. So I could pretty much speak to any group of people. Like, okay, if you're at risk, I know exactly what you're thinking you're going through. If you're in college and you're still trying to figure out your purpose, you don't know, you're just here trying to figure it out. I could speak to you. I'm an entrepreneur, so I could speak to the kids who are actually trying to be successful. So it's like all that pain that I had of not knowing what to do, going to my vices to deal with it, being in college and still partying. I could speak to the purpose because I knew that that's what I was running from, but in essence, it found me again. So all the pain of not knowing who I was, me doing therapy, going to counseling, getting my degree, now all the pain I could turn to purpose by helping people not walk down my same path, but also helping entrepreneurs and helping students who are first generation kids in college or who are also just like, man, I don't know what I want to be. Help me figure that out. So I feel like I have a gift to just hear someone speak and be like, okay, what are you good at? What would you do naturally for free? What's something you would do for free for the rest of your life? What's something you hate? That's probably a passion. What's so I just have a good way of just helping people figure out who they are, and then from figure out who you are, then you can figure out your purpose. So I feel like my life experiences have made me the perfect candidate to be like, hey, you're not your mistakes, but also if you're trying to figure this thing out, I can help. I can get in the weeds with you to help you figure that out as
Mm.
well.
I like it. I like that approach. You
Yeah.
know, what I like about Gen Z and today's college students is a lot of them really are actually into health and nutrition, which is
Yep.
really, really nice. And I think a lot of people believe that everybody wants to abuse alcohol and drugs. And I don't really think that's true. I think there's a lot of students that, really, they don't necessarily need to do that. They're more into health and nutrition, which is great about this generation. But I do feel like, college fraternities and sororities, we take this approach of, hey, everybody's abusing alcohol. And, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that way, but that's just
Exactly.
kind of the stereotype, right? So how do we shift the narrative away from alcohol and drugs on college campuses? How do we do that?
I think, like you said, it's highlighting the other stuff. Like, there's plenty of students who aren't doing that, who
Right,
care about their schoolwork, who are studying, who are maybe athletes. They're in the gym taking care of their body. So I guess they might not necessarily be the really popular kids. So
right.
I would say highlight the good people, highlight the good students, and let them know, like, okay, this is a narrative that has been pushed for a while, but there is plenty more students who are on the right path, who are on the straight and narrow. So I guess giving them more voices, I would say as well, and showing them like the other side. I feel like the other side, like you say, gets highlighted way more, and the
Yeah,
narrative gets pushed. Like, oh, everyone's just drunk and hungover all the time. Where it's really not the case. There are a lot of kids who are like, no, I'm focused on my future.
right.
And of doing that. So I think giving them more of a voice and a platform, I would say as well.
I think that's smart. I think we have a perception problem. People just assume that everybody is drinking or doing drugs in college, and so they want to like morph into that because they feel like everybody's doing it. If they actually saw the data, then they'd be like, "Oh, not everybody's doing it, so I don't have to even go down that road." Right?
Yep.
But we have a perception problem, and I think that's the issue. The other thing that I think about too is retention. A lot of these student organizations, whether it be fraternities, sororities, or other student orgs, we have a problem in terms of keeping them in the organization. They end up, just leaving or ghosting us, and we just, we don't communicate with them. So, do you have any tips in terms of how we can improve our retention of students in our organizations?
Um, I would say maybe making like what you want from them super clear. I know for me, when I've ever been under somebody working a
Mhm,
job,
mhm,
when what they want from me is super clear, I don't have to second guess it. The expectations are out in front. It's like, this is what I want from you. And then I could tell them this is what I want from this experience. I think that helps. But also, I know what's encouraged me is when I'm under a leader that he champions my dreams. So I
mm,
feel like a lot of time we could get into situations where you're in an organization and there's a goal for the organization, which is great, and you're on board for that, and you're pushing towards that goal. But having a leader that's like, hey, so what do you want to do? Like, what are your gifts? What are your strengths? So yeah, as they're helping build your agenda, because at the end of the day, it's an agenda,
mhm.
you help build theirs as well. So it's like everybody wins. 'Cause I know a lot of people that just get burnt out and they're like, a lot of times you hire people who are like, they're really gifted and they could run their own things. They have all these big dreams and they kind of feel stifled sometimes underneath. So I would say just championing each person on your staff, each student on your staff, like their dreams, their goals, making clear expectations. But also, I would say creating like a culture that's like really open, a culture of just like come as you are,
Mhm.
like with your mistakes, not being afraid to say when you mess up, and just letting each individual know like they're welcome here. Because I just know there's plenty of places where I didn't feel welcomed, like my full self, who I
Mhm.
really was. So I feel like I had to maybe dim my light again, maybe even in a corporate room. I have to dim my light, who I really am, just to fit into this culture. So letting each individual know like who you are, bring your full self to this, and we love you and admire your full self. If that makes sense.
That's great advice. That actually makes a ton of sense to me. And I think you're right. I think everybody's got their own dreams. And you really have to ask to find out what that is. I think all too often leaders just, kind of assume that they can motivate everybody with that same type of motivation, but everybody's motivated by something different. You might be looking to get one thing, I might be looking to get something totally different. But if you don't ask, then you won't know what those people's dreams are. So you got to start with what is your dream and
Yeah,
listen to what they tell you and take notes and write it
yeah,
down because that is how you're going to motivate Aaron going forward. But you got to ask the question. You don't ask the question, you don't know. And you can't assume that everybody's going to be motivated by the same thing. Everybody in your organization is going to be motivated by something different.
mm-hmm.
That is really an important piece of leadership, but you got to ask. The other thing was too. I was speaking about a week ago at the University at Buffalo, and there was a bunch of fraternity and sorority members in the audience. And I asked them, I said, "Who here is a leader?" And I want you to raise your hand if you're a leader. And I swear to you, man, like huge crowd, like just a handful of people that raised their hand. And I'm looking
Really?
at this and I'm like, what is wrong with you guys? I was like, everybody in this room should be raising their hand right now. It doesn't matter if you have a position and a title or not. It really doesn't matter to me because I said to him, I said, we all know, leaders who have the title who are actually terrible leaders.
Yep.
And we also all know somebody in the organization that has no title at all, but they're actually a really good leader in that organization, but they got no title, right? We all
Mhm.
know those types of situations. So, how do we discover the leader that is inside of each and every one of us?
That's such a good question. Because I think it's a perception problem.
Mm,
Because if you feel like, okay, I don't have a bunch of people following me, then I'm not a leader. But really it starts with you just leading yourself at
mhm,
the end of the day. Like, so holding yourself accountable. When you make a goal, sticking to that goal. So I feel like a lot of times people don't view themselves as leaders because they might not be actively leading somebody, but sometimes people are following you. You don't even know it. They're just watching your discipline. They're watching how you communicate. They watch how you deal with conflict. And they're like, man, I love how you do that. So I think it's just awakening people to like how dope they really are. And just letting them know like your voice matters. Like people, even they're not saying something, they're watching you. They're watching how you operate. And you're leading people with your actions a lot of times. So letting people know like just how you show up, you're being a leader. One, you're leading yourself, but also just how you show up in every environment, every room you walk in. People are always paying attention. So just be aware. You might not think they are, but they actually are like taking notes actively, mentally, and maybe even in their notes. I know there's people have mentored me that I've never met my entire life.
mhm,
I just
mhm.
watch, and they've led me from afar. Just watching how they love their wife and their kids, I'm like, wow, like I'm taking notes. So they're leading me when they don't know it. So letting people know, like, take pride in like who you are and how you show up and the gifts you have, and then them realizing like, man, like I do have something to offer. Like even if I am the administrative person and nobody asks me anything, they're still watching like, wow, like you do that stuff with integrity. Like I just love how you're just so diligent. Like you're leading people even in that way as well.
Man, you make some really, really great points. I think
Yeah.
I can think of a whole bunch of people in my life that I've taken notes on in terms of the way that they conduct themselves as a family man or as a man of values, or what have you. And I'm taking notes. I mean, they might not even realize it, but I'm taking notes. I'm like, I
Yep.
want to adopt that part of this person's personality because I really believe in it and I like the way that it looks and it looks good on me and that's something I want to strive for, right?
Yep.
But they might not even consider themselves leaders. That's the funny part. So yeah, that's I really like that a lot. The other thing is that we all know that really the goal of college students should be academic success. I mean, ultimately, it would be great if that could be what we all are driven by is that academic success. I think that's going to lead to better jobs, better opportunities, etc. So, what are some tips in order for students to improve their GPA and to improve their learning in school?
Um, One of my favorite quotes, I don't know who said it, but it says, character is who you are when nobody's looking. So I feel like to improve your GPA, it's what are you doing outside of the classroom? I know for me, when I was in college, I say all the time, my thing was C's and D's get degrees. I don't know why I thought that, but I did the bare minimum. I did the bare minimum to get by and get my degree. I only studied the night before the test. I would cram the information in my brain so it's fresh. But I would say encourage students to like make school a lifestyle. Don't just wait till the night before the test. Like outside of class, take it serious. Like study, be in the library, take your notes. I'm not saying you can't have fun, but like make it more like I'm thinking about my future. I'm not just trying to get the grade. I want to make this a part of who I am. And if I could go back in time and do calls differently, I would have done it way differently. I would have really just asked my professors more questions and really just let these subjects become who I am more than just try to get the grade. So I think a way to get students to get higher GPAs is just to buy in more. To buy in more. So this is about you and your future. This isn't about just getting a grade. It's about how can I take this time, this 4 years or five, however long you're there, how can I take this time to build habits that I could take with me for the rest of my life. Because
Mhm.
that's what college is more about. It's about you're connecting with people, but it's about the habits. This is the first time you're on your own, being your own parent. And it's like, what can I take from this for the next 20, 30, 40 years of my life? And that's going to trickle over to the grades. If you just become like the leader of your own life, like we were talking about before, and being like, you know what? I'm going to take these classes serious. It's not about the grade, it's about the grade, but it's more about what it's doing inside of me to be diligent studying and taking these things seriously. And then I think, yeah, your GPA is just going to come alive and it's going to grow because you're like, you know what? Even if I don't care about this subject per se, I'm going to be diligent to what's on my plate in this present time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's developing good habits. For me, it was really just, treating school like a job, like I'm going to
Yeah.
be working it like 9 to 5. Listen, I had fun, okay? I was
Yeah.
chapter president of my fraternity. I promise you I had fun, okay? I
Okay.
promise you. I didn't miss out on any of that. But like 9 to 5, I was treating it like a job, okay?
Yeah.
And so I was in the library every single day, just committed to it and doing that work early. And I think just staying on top of that on a regular basis instead of cramming, that really gave my brain the opportunity to absorb all of this, and really take it in instead of just like a flash, study the night before and hope I'm going to retain all of it. Your brain doesn't work that way. You
Yeah.
have to be exposed to it over a long period of time. And so treating it like a job, I think is really was kind of the key to my success. Now, after 5 o'clock, it was on, but but 9 to 5, I was treating it like a job. So I think that's important. And you also mentioned talking to your professors. I think building relationships with your professors, you have no idea how far that can take you. Stopping into their office hours, sitting in the front row of class so they actually know who you are. And they're like, oh, that's Aaron. Like them being able to do that and be able to actually know who you are, because you sit in the front row every week and you ask
Yep.
questions and you're engaged and you come by their office hours. Oh my God, you have no idea what a difference that makes on your grades. Just that.
Yep.
Forget about test taking. Forget about any of that. Homework, none of that. I'm saying just so they know who you are.
Yep.
That is key. That is really key.
Mhm.
Anyway, so that's good stuff.
Yep.
The other thing I want to talk to you about is negativity because especially now, like we're always comparing ourselves to everybody else out there, as somebody else's best day on Instagram, we're like, oh my God, this guy, is in wherever, some faraway place on the
Yep.
beach, loving life. And here I am, like, working my butt off. So like negativity in our minds, it's something that you and I and everybody in the world, we all battle that. So how can we adopt instead a positive mindset?
This is like this is my whole life mission right here. Like when my thing break the cycle is because it's all in the mind. Like most of the limitations we have, they're not physical. It's mostly like mental things that are stopping us. And we believe the lies that we've been telling ourselves our whole life. I was researching this the other day, well, probably like a couple months back, and it said we have about 60,000 thoughts a day, and 80% of them are negative. So that's probably about 48,000 of our thoughts a day are negative. And I was just blown back. I'm like, that's so many negative things that are just going through our mind day in and day out. And if we think about it, we would never talk to somebody else the way we talk to ourselves. Like the mean stuff we say to ourselves in our mind and in our brain, we would never fix our lips to talk to someone else like that. But yet every single day, we talk to ourselves and say the worst of the worst. You're dumb. You're not going to make it. So I think for me, what has helped shape my life tremendously is realizing anytime a negative thought comes into my mind, if it's not like correction, then I need to throw it out. I'm all for being corrected. I'm all for how can I do things better. But if it's demeaning and it's negative self-talk, it's not going to help you grow at all because what you think is going to affect your mood. And then your mood is going to affect like how you do life. So a lot of us, we're just getting by because we might be talented and gifted, but in our minds, it's a war every single day. So I feel like if you could learn to have a positive mindset, it really just starts with loving yourself and being like, no, like those lies that I've been believing for years, months, weeks, or whatever, are they serving you? Are they making you a better person? Is it bringing joy to your life? And if it's not, I know that mental health is a really big thing. So I never wanted to mean like depression, anxiety, and those things are super real. But it's being like trying to capture those thoughts and be like, man, what is helping me and what is hindering me. And then the moment you can learn to think positively about yourself and the world around you, you're going to see stuff open up differently. You're going to see people differently. You're going to see yourself differently. And it's a process. It's a journey that I've been on, because I'm only 33, but I've been on this journey for a while. And I feel like I finally got a hold, not like I've arrived, of being like, when the thoughts come in, replacing them with positive ones. But that's really, it's an everyday thing. It's never like you're gonna arrive. It's an everyday work your muscle of like the negative thoughts come in. Okay, Aaron, is this the truth, Aaron? Like, are you really dumb? Like, are you really like, no, that's not true. Look at the work you've already done, the people you've
Mhm.
impacted. So it's
Mhm.
just reminding yourself when the lie comes in, try to replace it with that truth.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Aaron. I mean, we all have difficult days, no matter what we're portraying on social media. I
Yeah.
promise you, Aaron and I have bad days. I promise you.
Yep.
Okay. And so the key is, what do you do when that happens? It's not if it happens, it's when it happens.
Yep.
And when it does, the key for me, I'll tell you my secret is that I have a bunch of testimonials that students have written to me over the years that I've spoken to them on their campus and I made a big impact on their life. I just start reading those, and instantly all of those negative thoughts, they're gone because it
Wow.
gives me purpose. Because you're like, how can I not go to the next college campus and help another student in this way? Like, that's God's work. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I didn't do that, it's criminal, if I didn't continue. So,
Yeah.
like,
That's
I
so
know it's
good.
going to happen. Those negative thoughts are going to come in, but you have to have a way to deal with it when it does. And for me, it's just reading the testimonials from the students. And then I'm like, all right, I got you. I got
That's
you.
so good.
Yeah. So really good stuff, man. This has been a lot of fun. Now I got to tell you, my weakness, it's not alcohol or drugs, it's food. Okay. Really good food. I love great food. And I get to Atlanta pretty often. I live in Nashville, so I'm only about 4 hours away from you in
Oh,
Atlanta.
you're in Nashville?
Yeah,
Okay.
man. So like, where should I go for a great meal in Atlanta the next time I'm in town?
So what's your favorite type of food?
Bro, I mean, anything under the sun. Okay. Like I live in
Okay.
Nashville, so barbecue is always really good. I'm always a fan of that. I also went to school at the University of Buffalo. So like buffalo wings, I'm always a big fan. Just came back from there and just ate my heart out. I
Okay.
probably gained like 20 pounds, but it's all good. So I'm game for anything. I like a lot of Asian foods as well. Like that's another thing for me, like Thai,
Okay.
Indian, like and Mexican. Anything that's spicy, I'm really in. So, I mean, I'm open. Let's just put it that way.
So there's a spot I love. It's called the Melting Pot.
All right.
It's like American type food, but it has like everything you could think of. So it's
Okay.
pretty good. There's a melting pot. There's another spot called Little Old Lady. It's a crazy type of name. It's like a brunch spot though.
Uh-huh.
And the wait's kind of long, but if you get in there, it's probably the best brunch food you'll ever have. So if you're there like around 11 to 1,
Uh-huh.
yeah, so I would say Little Old Lady and then the Melting Pot. Those are two great spots. You should
All right.
probably check.
Little old lady and melting pot. I'm gonna hit those spots up and then I'm gonna email you. I'll let you know what I think.
Okay, okay.
All right, listen, this has been a lot of fun. If our listeners, if they want to bring you in to speak on their college campuses, where should they go to connect with you?
You could go to IamAaronPatterson.com. That's the website. If you have Instagram, it's IAM_Aaron Patterson on everything, any social media platform you want to come check out.
I love it. It's IamAaronPatterson.com, and Aaron spells his name Aaron. Patterson is Patterson. Go and connect with him on Instagram. Go and check out his website. Invite him to come and speak on your college campus because he is rocking it and he is going to light that stage on fire. So, so Aaron, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom with us today. This is a lot of fun.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. And to our student listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation with Aaron, I want you to like this on social media and I want you to share it with other college students so they can hear Aaron as well. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you on another episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Bye for now.